Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Hen Talks series. My name is Tom Julian, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, Career and Professional Engagement in the Office of Development and Alumni Relations. I'd like to thank you all for registering for today's event. We have a great presentation for today's session. Hen Talks is a webinar series that will run throughout the year, featuring alumni, faculty, staff, and friends of the university. Each speaker will discuss a topic they feel is important to students and alumni regarding career and professional development. All Hen Talks will be recorded and can be accessed by visiting the Hen Talks page of udconnection.com or by viewing the resources on our UD Career Acceleration Network platform. A few items before we do get started. If you have any questions that you would like to have answered throughout the presentation, please type them into our Q&A feature. In addition, if there are any tech problems from your end, feel free to write those in there as well. We will answer as many of these questions as we can at the end of the session. We encourage you to keep the conversation going on social media by using the hashtag HenTalks. Lastly, if there are any technical issues as a viewer of this webinar, please contact UD's IT Support Center at consult@udall.edu or by phone at 302-831-6000. Now, I would like to introduce our presenter, Kelly Deily, who is currently the Assistant Director for Graduate Career Services at Drexel University's LaBelle College of Business. In this role, Kelly serves as the primary career advisor to students in the Master of Science of Business Analytics and the Master of Science in Supply Chain Management programs. She also conducts employer outreach and engagement within these spaces to generate internship and full-time job opportunities for her students. Furthermore, Kelly is the host of Career Conversations with Kelly, a career and professional development podcast produced by Drexel. She also serves as a rotating co-host for the podcast Growing Greater Philadelphia, a weekly radio program affiliated with Select Greater Philadelphia and the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia. Kelly is a UD alum, having received her Master's of Arts in Counseling for Higher Education in 2011, in addition to receiving her Bachelor of Science in Business and Accounting from Widener University. This session is titled Job Search Strategies, so without further ado, I would like to open the floor to our presenter, Kelly. Welcome and thank you for presenting today, Kelly.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining me today. I'm so excited. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to these things. I love doing workshops and talking about these types of topics. And as Tom mentioned, I am a proud University of Delaware alumna. And let's get started. I just want to make sure that everyone can see the presentation before I get started. Can you see the presentation, Tom?
So I can see, so I still see my slide actually.
Okay.
So let's try. So go ahead and try to grab the, go through that new share.
Can you see it now?
Yep, I can see it. The PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
We're in slideshow view finally?
We are in slideshow mode.
All right, let's get started. So I also just want to be mindful. I'm going to try to keep this to about 35 to 45 minutes so that we can have enough time for questions. Okay, so let's just jump right in. There's some really good news about our current climate. The overall job market is really doing well. Unemployment rates are at an all-time low. So this is really great news, but competition still exists, okay? So just because it's a candidate's market doesn't mean that landing a job is going to be easy. There's still a lot of candidates out there, so we need to prepare and we need to be able to find ways to differentiate ourselves when we are looking for jobs, okay? Let's focus on what we can control and what we can do. First and foremost, in order to set yourself up for success and increase your chances of landing multiple interviews, you need to be flexible and open. And what I mean by that is flexible and open with location, with the position that you are considering, and with the title. Do not worry about the job title. I have students questioning me and also alums questioning me a lot about titles. And I say, look, the title can be very deceiving. So instead of being concerned about that, let's look at the actual role itself and the kind of work that you will be doing. Okay? Be willing to consider a stepping stone position as well. So if you're struggling to land interviews or offers, let's say, at your dream job or dream company, you should consider a role that will provide you with transferable skills that can later land you the role that you really want, okay? So searching for a job can also be really frustrating and time consuming, and you have to be focused and disciplined, all right? So developing an action plan and sticking to it and holding yourself accountable will pay off. And we will talk about that a little bit more as we go through this presentation. So for now, let's really focus on this action plan. What does this mean? So research. Now, research is going to take multiple different formats, okay? Let's start off with employers and companies. Research is, in my opinion, the best place to start, just to ensure that you're aware of what companies are even out there. A lot of my students are only looking at big name companies, right? We all want to work at Facebook and Google and Amazon. And sometimes that makes us not really think about or be aware of the thousands and thousands of other companies that are potentially wonderful fits for us, okay? So think about your interests and your job objectives. Read through job descriptions thoroughly. And I really want to emphasize that. I think that you need to read at least 50 job descriptions that are similar in nature to look at different trends and to understand the kinds of roles that you should actually be applying for. Once again, go beyond the titles. Figure out what an investment banker actually does if you want to be an investment banker, okay? Don't be fooled by the title. It might not be right for you. If you're interested in market research, for example, what does a market researcher or let's say a business analyst actually do all day? Do your research and figure out what roles you should apply for. I know I'm saying this a few times, but it's just so important. Also kind of, give thought to the type of company that matches your needs. I would consider company culture. Is this a place that wears suit and tie every day? Is it very formal? Do you maybe like a laid back culture? Are you open to company size? And again, open to location. Be willing to relocate if that's what it's going to take to land you a position that is really going to launch your career. In terms of joining professional organizations, this is key. And this is also a topic that I'm going to kind of dig a little bit deeper later on, but I did want to mention it in the action plan. Now, keeping records is also crucial. I know it sounds obvious, but many people don't do it. Keep a record of where you're applying, and there is a chart that I'm going to touch upon on the next slide to show you the best way to keep your records. Now, setting goals. Okay, I don't think that job searching should necessarily be a numbers game in the sense that you tell yourself, well, I'm going to apply to 500 companies and I'm going to get 100 interviews and then I'll have 20 job offers. I mean, yeah, you definitely need to keep a list of those things. But I'm all about a strategic job search in the sense that you're only applying for you're only applying for positions where you meet 70 to 80% of the job criteria, and that you're actually taking time to customize your resume and cover letter when you are applying for these positions. So creating a flawless resume that's been proofread many times and reviewed by your career advisor, give a plug to the Career Center, as well as a solid and complete LinkedIn profile, which starts with a professional looking picture, okay? And everybody everybody hates cover letters. I know that, you know, cover letters are no fun to write, and I will admit myself, it's not, I don't enjoy doing it. I don't enjoy even reviewing cover letters at the time, but it's a necessary evil. And yes, most recruiters are still reading cover letters. Okay, so let's move on to the chart. Now, I would really encourage you all to create this chart in Excel. I developed this chart because it really does keep you on track. Now, a quick side note is I used to be a recruiter, and nothing annoyed me more than when I called a candidate about an interview and they had no idea who I was or why I was calling them. They didn't know the company that they applied for, and it just didn't give the candidate a good look, right? So if you keep detailed records, you will always be prepared when you get a phone call or an email. And then plus you can stay on top of which companies and recruiters you should follow up with later, which is also really important, okay? Moving on to a SWOT analysis. I'm sure many of the people listening right now have heard of a SWOT analysis, at least in terms of maybe a SWOT analysis on a company, right? You look at a company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But when you're job searching, you should be doing a SWOT on yourself, okay? The better you know yourself, the better strategy you can create. I know I said this before, but I have to say it again. Do not waste your time applying for jobs that you do not have the qualifications for. Only apply for roles where you meet 70 to 80% of the job description. Now, I do realize that aside from an internship or two, that most students and most new graduates are not going to have a ton of experience yet. But again, be realistic, okay? It's rare for a candidate to meet every aspect of the job description, but if you are a new graduate with 6 months of, let's say, internship or co-op experience, and the role that you're interested in is asking for a minimum of 3 years of experience, that probably isn't the best role for you. I think you might be wasting your time. Instead, find a position that is open to new grads with minimal experience. Now, if you held a number of internships or co-ops, then you can apply for roles that are asking for 2 to 3 years of experience, because when you add all of those experience up, it does equate to 2 years of experience considering your background, okay? But just be honest with yourself when you do the self-assessment. Now, your strengths and your weaknesses are internal factors that you can control. And for purposes of this presentation, that's essentially what we're going to focus on. I will go through the opportunities and threats as well. But your strengths are your skills, okay? Whether they are technical skills, soft skills, which we now call essential skills, referrals. Okay, do you know someone in a company that you're interested in? A referral is a huge strength, which that really comes down to networking, which we will also touch upon soon. And then relevant experience is also going to be a strength. A weakness is a skills gap, right? If the job description, or let's say the field that you want to go into is looking for a certain skill that you don't have, okay, that's a weakness, but the more you know, the more knowledge you have, you can acquire those skills later. Another weakness would be lack of experience, lack of a network within a particular company or industry. Opportunities, these are things that you should use to your advantage. Once again, your network. Also, if there is growth within a particular industry or a company you're interested in, okay, that is a huge opportunity. If there's a high demand for certain skills that you possess, that's also an opportunity. A threat, an example of a threat would be a downsizing, let's say, of a company or a certain industry, and maybe if a company is going through layoffs, okay? So continuing on from our SWOT analysis, let's focus on our strengths and opportunities and how we can maximize our skill set. as you are job searching, I would really encourage you to think about your accomplishments. You have already acquired certain skills, and you can transfer them to many aspects of many industries. So remembering your achievements is going to give you confidence, all right? Use your past experiences to demonstrate your abilities. Now, I have 3 examples on this slide. Even if, let's say, you are, and I'm making this up as an example, but if you, let's say, are a sophomore or a junior who maybe hasn't had relevant experience yet, but maybe you were a camp counselor in high school or freshman or sophomore year of college, think about the skills that you developed being a camp counselor. Maybe, and I would assume, you would develop leadership skills. So, okay, leadership is a transferable skill that you can apply to your next position, okay? The other thing, can you think of a specific time when you solved a problem on the job or in a group project? Those are other things. Again, problem-solving skills and analytical or critical thinking skills are amazing skills that most recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. So that is a huge advantage if you can think of details that you can talk about on an interview where you used those skill sets. Okay, something else to consider that sometimes I don't think we really think about. You can gain skills through short-term service opportunities and through temporary positions, even after you graduate, all right? You should consider taking an internship after your graduation, especially if you're struggling to land that first full-time job, okay? Remembering titles don't matter here. I have seen a number of students who have graduated from undergrad, even graduated with their master's degree, who have taken an internship that has turned into a full-time opportunity, okay? So please don't think that an internship means that you're necessarily going to lose that position after the summer is over. Okay, so moving on, where to look and what you can do. First and foremost, establish a target list of companies. You may recall earlier on I mentioned to be strategic in your job search and don't just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see what sticks, right? I would really not encourage you to just start clicking the apply button to 500 positions at once. I think that if you're strategic and focused, you're going to have more luck, okay? So in addition to searching for positions on LinkedIn or Indeed or Glassdoor, you should come up with a list of, let's say, 20 to 30 companies that you are interested in. You can check their websites for postings, but more importantly, reach out to people who work for these companies and start to network and build relationships. Nobody likes networking. That's essentially what I'm learning. And I know sometimes I don't even like doing it, but it is so important when you are starting out in your career. It's always important, but especially when you're just starting out and you don't really have a network yet. And like I said before, a lot of us, we don't even know what companies are out there. So reach out to people who work for these companies, start to network. Another really important piece of advice I have is talk to people who are doing the job you think you want, right? Asking questions of these people. I'll touch upon that in a minute too. But when you establish rapport with a person, when a role does become available, you will probably have a referral into that organization. And that, when I talk about astronomical advantage, we're talking about 1 in 100 chance of landing an interview when you apply online and you don't know anyone at that company versus a 1 in 10% chance of getting the interview when you know someone. And I actually have some more recent data that shows that that percentage is even higher. So, now, researching the advertised job market is really obvious, but what's not obvious is that there is a hidden job market. And the hidden job market is a phenomenon that, again, most students and most young professionals are not aware of. So, as I mentioned, the majority of positions are secured through networking. oftentimes there are positions available that haven't been posted yet, and sometimes will never be posted. So this is another example of why networking is so important, okay? And this is also a reminder to use your LinkedIn profile to your advantage. LinkedIn is not just for job searching, it is also for networking and for finding connections. And there's a really cool tool on LinkedIn called the alumni tool. So you could go into your LinkedIn page, click on the alumni tool, and everyone that has graduated from the University of Delaware that has a LinkedIn profile is going to populate into this. So this is priceless, really, when you think about it. One other thing I'll mention is mock interviews are crucial. I would really recommend using your career services office to do mock interviews and to actually do that mock interview based on a real interview that you have coming up to make it as realistic as possible, okay? I also would do a mock interview with an industry professional if possible. And lastly, informational interviews. There's more to come on that soon, but informational interviews is also something that I strongly recommend. So I want to dig a little bit more into networking because it's so important. And I'd like to remind everyone that's listening today that networking is supposed to be mutually beneficial, okay? You don't just want to reach out to somebody when you need something, all right? So it should be a mutually beneficial relationship, and you want to gather contacts, you want to talk to people who may be able to help you with your career, yes, but who you may also be able to assist with something, which I'll get into that too. So you may be thinking, I don't have a network yet, but you do have a network of people that you may not even be thinking about. So I would encourage you to talk to your professors, and professors sometimes even have knowledge about job opportunities, something that students don't really think about. And I would reach out to professors that you have a good relationship with and ask them if they'll write you a letter of recommendation, or at the very least, if they will write you a recommendation on LinkedIn. That is, again, I would say priceless. Former work supervisors, current work supervisors, alums, your relatives, neighbors, these are all people that are already in your network, okay? And then obviously if someone gives you the name of someone, that is also really great information that you want to hold on to. So how can you network, right? And I want the introverts to listen as well, because you do not have to be an extrovert to be a solid networker. And I talk about this a lot in my podcast too, and I've interviewed a ton of introverts. So networking does not have to be this big scary room with hundreds or thousands of people, okay? If you're in that situation, go in with a manageable goal. Maybe just talk to 2 or 3 people, and that'll kind of make it feel less daunting. Coming back to professional organizations. Now, again, when you're starting out in your career, you may not even know what organizations are out there, but you can just do a quick search, do some quick research, talk to your career advisors, and they can help you establish what professional organizations that you should join, okay? But the best way to increase your network and increase your chances of landing a challenging role and a satisfying role is to join and actually attend the event. So you have to attend the events. You don't want to just join the organization, but this is how you'll get to know people. And you can ask them questions, make it about them, right? Start a conversation with someone and say, tell me about your company and tell me about your role. And that oftentimes makes things a little less daunting when we're putting the focus on other people. Another tip is offer to work registration for one of the events that you may be attending through the professional organization. This is such a great way to gain exposure. Just offer to work at the registration, where people are checking in. You can also ask if there's anything else that you can help with at this event. And lastly, again, I want you to create a LinkedIn profile and reach out to alumni on LinkedIn, okay? informational interviewing is something that you really, really, really should be doing. And I would recommend maybe 5 informational interviews. It's really a tremendous form of networking that it also, pardon me, that is also highly beneficial to candidates who are searching for jobs, because you're going to get to screen careers before you choose them. Remember what I said before, you want to talk to people that are doing the jobs that you think you want, so that you can learn. You can learn, like, is this something I'm really interested in? You can also maybe choose someone that's on your target list of companies and see, is this company somewhere that I want to work? Okay. And then naturally, you want to get your questions answered. You want to get your career related questions answered, and you will be building your network the entire time that you're doing this. Okay. So I already mentioned the who, the how. In addition to using LinkedIn, I know I sound like a broken record now, but in addition to that, get names from your coworkers, from your friends, your classmates, your professors, your relatives. Always be asking for names for people that you can reach out to, okay? And what I have learned in my career that was not only successful for me, but very successful for my students, is when you make a request that has a boundary attached to it. So can you give me 20 minutes of your time? I have a few questions for you. Can you meet me for a few minutes to have coffee? Typically, people are going to respond to students because we've all been there, right? And if you attach something that isn't going to take up a lot of their time, they're more likely to say, sure, I can talk to you for 20 minutes. I can give you 20 minutes of my time to talk on the phone or to meet for coffee. You just want to make sure that you're prepared, okay? You want to have a list of questions. You don't just want to get this meeting and then not know what you're going to talk about. But play the student card. I tell this to my students. I even tell this to when I'm talking to alums, young professionals, that when you put it on someone that you're just trying to learn from them, people are willing to help. They're willing to help out a student. They want to help someone who's trying to learn and gather information. Okay? So definitely something that you want to do. And this is just a quick reminder that it's okay to ask for help, and it is okay to actually use these contacts. Again, we want to make it mutually beneficial. We don't just want to ask someone, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? But you want to use your contacts for help with specific information. When you maybe can't find people who are doing the work that interests you, ask for help. If you maybe have a company in mind, but you can't figure out the name of the person who's the hiring manager or the recruiter, ask somebody who works there for the name of that person. Excuse me one second. So one of the phrases that one of my former bosses always used to say, and this is when I was a recruiter, he would always say, Kelly, don't ask, don't get. And I have that on a sticky note in my office. I remind myself all the time that really the worst thing that anyone can ever say is no. Okay, and then you move on. You move on from there. So don't be afraid to ask people for help. Let's just very quickly go through a job search steps summary. Now, as I mentioned, the investigative stage, this is when you're doing your research and when you're doing your SWOT analysis on yourself, okay? This also is when you should be conducting informational interviews and attending networking events. The written communication stage, the resume and cover letter, again, necessary evil, they should be targeted to every position that you're applying for, okay? And just to give a quick example, if the job description is looking for someone who is, let's say, proficient in Excel, for example, but they don't mention Tableau in the job description, your cover letter should focus on your Excel skills, not on skills that they're not looking for, such as Tableau. I know that's kind of obvious, but you want to match that cover letter to the job description. And again, these documents need to be flawless, okay? The last stage is the employer contact stage, and that's when you're going to be very actively applying and responding to job leads. You're doing even more networking to keep this rhythm going. And ultimately, you're going to hopefully get some interviews and accept employment. Another slide I'm just going to quickly go through. Everybody always says, what are my favorite job search sites? And honestly, you may laugh because it's not up here. Sometimes I just Google, and because Google pulls from everything, and I think Google is a great place as well. But if you want specific job search sites, I really like Indeed. I like Glassdoor. I also like reading company reviews on Glassdoor. I love LinkedIn, and oftentimes the name of the recruiter or hiring manager who is handling that position, many times their name will be attached to that job posting on LinkedIn. And then there's Career Builder, and if you're maybe interested in, let's say, working for the government, usajobs.gov. So those are just a few to get you started. Progress measurements. Now, I'm not going to read through every bullet on here, thank God, but you do have to hold yourself accountable. And I think if you use my chart that I showed, and you do have some weekly or bi-weekly progress measurements, you are going to be able to look at what you're doing and what you're not doing, right? So let's look at, did I have any networking conversations in the last week or so? Did I add any companies to my target list? Okay. Am I making an effort to set up informational interviews? Okay. And again, I don't want you doing 500 of these, but you do have to have some measure of progress. So, and at the end of this, I really think if you apply this strategy and you do the steps that I'm advising you to do, I really feel confident that you'll see some really great results. Okay. Now, I'm going to be your cheerleader for 1 second and just remind you that your major and future job title do not necessarily have to match. Quick example, my undergraduate degree is in accounting. I was a tax accountant for Deloitte early on in my career. I then became a recruiter. I did that for a number of years in Philly and in New York City. And then ultimately I went back to school for my master's degree, and I've been working as a career coach for the last 5 years. So, don't forget that. And I know that when I was in undergrad and when I was in my early 20s, I really thought that my life meant I had to be an accountant because that's what I majored in, okay? But job titles, none of that stuff matters, okay? The other thing, use your first job after graduation to prepare you to advance. Remember what I talked about with that stepping stone job, okay? Your first job is not going to be your last job. And honestly, the average college graduate now changes jobs once every 2 years. And most people are going to change career fields 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, all right? So I hope that can alleviate some of your stress in the process. And you cannot give up. You need to be persistent in your search. Again, I mentioned before, job searching can be not only time consuming, but just really frustrating at times. You feel like you're doing a lot of work, and it does take time, all right? Resumes and cover letters need to be flawless. And again, please edit and customize per job. This is not just coming from me. I talk to employers every day almost, and they do tell me that they can tell when a person has really not customized their resume or cover letter for the position that they're applying for, all right? And don't put all your eggs in one basket. I would not invest in only one company or position. I would continue my search until I have an offer in hand. Once that offer comes in, then you are in the driver's seat, okay? A reminder to keep your records. I would also create job alerts in the various websites that you're using. And lastly, please consider temporary work, as I mentioned before, or internships. I have really, truly seen that pay off for people even upon graduation. And follow-up. Let's just talk briefly about that. So anytime someone helps you in your search, it doesn't have to even be something major. It could just be maybe even like a 5-minute conversation, and a person gave you the name of someone that they know. Maybe someone referred you into an opportunity. Be grateful. Thank people who are helping you. They're going to remember if you thank them, I promise you. And even a handwritten thank you note in this day and age, let me tell you something. I just did a presentation yesterday with one of my recruiter friends, and he said, I never get handwritten thank you notes. On the rare occasion that I do, I remember that candidate for months afterwards because no one does that today. All right. So thank you notes, be grateful, keep your network updated about your search efforts. All right. This just goes back to the staying in touch concept. Don't just reach out to people when you need something. All right. You want to stay in touch. You want to build meaningful, genuine relationships. All right. So I hope that this was helpful and that everyone got something out of this today. And I just want to say thank you again for having me on as your guest today.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This is some really great information that was presented to everyone. We do have a couple questions that have come in over the course of the presentation, so I'd love to kind of go through those.
Yes, please.
And if anybody does have any additional questions from here until, as we wrap up this presentation, feel free to please submit those questions through this Q&A, through our Q&A tool that we have, and then we can make sure to get those answered for you.
Yes, and I am ready for questions. Please bring it on.
Okay, awesome. So, first question is from one of our attendees who asks, what do you do if you want to change fields or industries and therefore do not have the 70 to 80% match of the job descriptions?
Okay, is this from someone who does have some experience so far? I just wasn't sure if.
Yes.
Okay.
So they just responded.
Yeah, so I'm a perfect example of that. I don't want to make this all about me, but I'm a person who changed industries, careers 3 times, right? So I was a tax accountant who then became a recruiter, who then became a career coach. And a huge part of that was building that network. I know people are probably like, oh God, but I did informational interviews, and I even shadowed people. When I became a career coach, before I made that decision, I shadowed other career coaches who allowed me to spend a day with them, which also built my network up. And I also learned what skills are needed to make that change. For me, I will say, getting into higher ed, I needed to go back to school and get a master's degree. So I would learn, okay, take an inventory. What skills do I have now? What skills will I need in order to make that shift? And then see if you can acquire those skills. And, again, I do think a lot of it is going to have to be talking to people and building that network.
Awesome. Great. And then we do have an additional question here as well. And this person is asking, how do you ask for recommendations without people assuming you're looking for a job? And how do you balance that relationship?
Recommendations like referral. I don't quite understand the question.
Let's see. So when you're asking on LinkedIn for people to write the recommendations for you, or
right, but you're not asking for a job when you ask a person for a recommendation. When you're asking someone to write about what you did really well, let's say, over your internship, that is something that, again, most people are going to be willing to do if you had a strong relationship with your supervisor and you did really well at your internship. Asking them for a recommendation is totally acceptable, and I would encourage you to do that. Balancing the relationship, I wouldn't just reach out to that person when you are looking for the recommendation. You want to stay in touch with people. I hope that answered the question. Maybe if that person can give a little more clarity.
Mm-hmm. And I guess would that go into play a little bit about the informational interviewing is always a great way to approach that relationship. Is that right?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
agree.
So you have the balance of not always asking when you need it, but, kind of continuing and building your network there.
Right, right. And networking, just to kind of one more thing. Yes, I understand that people do not want to come off as just looking for jobs, oh, I'm asking around, like, I only want to talk to you because I need a job. People know, let's be honest, most people are going to know if you're a student or if you are an early career professional that the ultimate goal is getting a job. I mean, that's nothing to be ashamed about, and that's nothing to shy away from, because it is what it is. But there's obviously a way to do it. You don't want to just, hi, I'm Kelly. Is your company hiring?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way you would lead. Again, I think just starting off with asking questions has always been really successful for me and for the people that I advise to do that. I find where when you make it about the other person and you're really just genuinely trying to learn, the conversation flows naturally, and you can build from there. You're not going to build this amazing relationship after your first exchange. It does take work. But I think if you start with that approach, that you'll be successful.
Okay, great. Yeah, she actually clarified a little bit too about her question. So not necessarily coming from a student perspective, but asking my boss or coworker for a recommendation on LinkedIn without rumors flying around that I am looking for another job.
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I just had that question from someone last week who, quite frankly, they are searching for a job and they are trying to build up the recommendations, but they didn't want to raise the red flags. I would approach it like, hey, let's just say, for the sake of argument, you get on your manager's calendar, and I would go in and reference a specific project that you recently completed that you did really well, right? Or something that you've done that you can say, I've done this, something specific. I know you were really pleased with it, and I was wondering if you would write me a recommendation on LinkedIn just based on my strengths. And you can even couch it as, I'm just trying to practice building up my profile for my own professional development. You can tease, you can make a little joke like, I'm very happy here. I'm just seeking for some validation because, I am early on in my career and I'm looking to get some recognition for that. I would not worry though. I mean, I know that is a common concern and people do ask me that question sometimes. And, at the end of the day, everybody has a LinkedIn, and all of us, I mean, I've asked people for recommendations, and that's kind of how I couched it was, I'm not looking, I just want some validation for what I've done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you have anything to add to that, Tom? Would you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. I think it's always good to kind of continue to build, your profile or your resume, by getting some of these recommendations, not even necessarily for, obviously for job search purposes, but also if, just trying to continue to grow your own career within your current position and just kind of continue to get to that point. So I definitely agree that it's
Awesome.
a good idea to do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. So, and I kind of have a little plug here too for some of our attendees. We have obviously LinkedIn is a great place and a really good resource. We also, for UD alums and students, have a mentoring platform that we use called UD Can, or UD Career Acceleration Network, where students and alumni can create profiles, and actually students are able to connect with alums to ask those sort of questions too. So that's kind of an extra resource that our Career Center offers.
That's fantastic.
So that's a great little thing I wanted to add in for everyone listening today. So I think that's all of our questions. I'll give it another minute or two as we're kind of wrapping things up. If people want to use that Q&A tool to add any questions they'd like to ask Kelly or myself about our topic today, and then we'll probably close things out from there. But
yeah, and I apologize that I didn't understand one of the questions. I hope that I did answer it. If there's any follow-up questions, please, we do have some more time. So just, Fire them away.
Yeah. And again, for everyone too, and anybody, you can let other people know that this is being recorded today, so it will be posted and shared. And I will be able to send all of the attendees and those who registered for the event the YouTube link that this will be posted to.
Awesome.
So yeah. So I'll give it about another minute or so, and then we'll see how things go. Okay, so we have another question here. Do you recommend having a professional summary section on your resume?
Great question. Great question. That depends. I'm going to give you the scenario. So if you are a student / new graduate that really doesn't have much experience, I would say it's not necessary, because you probably at this point, it's like, what would you even put on there, right? So I would say it's not required, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. The thing that is not recommended, that is obsolete, are objectives. No matter what, you should not have an objective on your resume. We all know you're looking for a job. There's no need to say, I'm looking for a job, right? Or to land a position in your company kind of thing. Their objectives are a no-no. The professional summary, I think, is best in two scenarios. One, if you are a career changer, or you're switching fields and you want to be able to give the recruiter a snapshot of who you are within, let's say, 2 to 3 sentences at the top of your resume to help tie it all together, absolutely recommended. And the other time, if you are a person who has, I would say, like 5 to 10 years or more of experience, I think a summary then is also really good, just to highlight, here's my professional brand, here's who I am, these are, my top strengths, or what I'm known for. And so, yeah, most of the time I do recommend it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's, a good thing as well, like a nice little summary. Even some things that I think about too, is if there's ever gaps or anything you'd like to add that could be attributed to the job description you might be applying to, I guess that's probably a nice place to put some of those things.
Right.
So.
And you can hit some of the keywords. We all know about the applicant tracking systems now, which it's all about keywords. So that's a great point, Tom, is you can use that summary to touch upon maybe some of the things that they're looking for in the job description that maybe your experience section isn't, specifically touching on. I mean, ideally your experience section will, but if you need to kind of hit some of those softer skills, like maybe they're looking for leadership, maybe they're looking for really strong communicator, those are things you can put in your profile.
Absolutely. That's great. All right. Well, I think we will kind of close things out here a bit, as we don't have any more questions coming in. But I just wanted to thank everyone for participating and being an attendee at our event today. And again, thank you, Kelly, so much for presenting on this topic and being able to provide all this insight and advice to us all. It was really great to hear about all of these areas.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. And just again, as a reminder, these will be recorded and can be accessed through our Hen Talks page of udconnection.com, as well as on our UD Career Acceleration Network platform. And I will be following up with each one of you, sending you the link to the recording once it is set up on our YouTube channel. And again, if you have any suggestions about further Hen Talks topics in regards to career and professional development, feel free to email me directly as I begin to grow and add some more sessions throughout the semesters. My email is tjulian@udel.edu, so feel free to send me a message with that. I'll also, again, will be sending a follow-up email to everyone, so you'll have my email there. So I hope,
Oh, sorry to cut you. I was going to say,
sure,
again, I'm Kelly Deily. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free.
Yeah, and Kelly, if you don't mind, I could definitely share any information in that email with everyone who attended, if you'd like me to share any LinkedIn profiles or anything like that for connections. So
sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon.